Thanks for joining us for this Labor Day. And for CBN NewsWatch, I'm Wendy Griffith. Today, the campaign for the midterm elections is underway. President Biden back on the trail in the swing state of Pennsylvania as Republicans criticize his Thursday night speech. And former President Trump hinting about his own plans for 2024. Why some Christian leaders believe our nation faces a spiritual reckoning. We'll hear from one Christian author who says America must have a revival. And we'll take you to the Cathedral of the Wild. Each year, 3,000 people take on the challenge of hiking the Appalachian Trail. We'll hear some of their stories and how a church ministers to them along the way. And a major college basketball team's visit to the Holy Land. We'll see the historic places the Auburn University team traveled to, as some players even got baptized in the Jordan River. These stories and much more today on CBN NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
We begin on the campaign trail as Labor Day traditionally marks the beginning of election season. President Biden making his third trip to the Keystone State in Pennsylvania this week. His speech in Philadelphia Thursday night has drawn sharp criticism from Republicans for calling supporters of former President Trump a threat to the country.
Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic.
It basically condemned all Republicans who supported Donald Trump in the last election. That's over 70 million people. And, saying that Republicans are a threat to democracy is really a slap in the face.
Biden tried to clarify his remarks on Friday, saying he wasn't condemning all Republicans, just those who stand by Trump after the violence on January 6th. Many Democrats who face tough re-election fights have avoided appearing with Biden on the campaign trail. Trump also held a rally in Pennsylvania Saturday night, blasting Biden's speech and hinting at his own plans for 2024.
So I may just have to do it again.
But first, we have to win a historic victory for the Republican Party this November.
Both Trump and Biden have made important endorsements in important races across the country. The Senate race in Pennsylvania is one of the key election battles that will decide if Republicans or Democrats control the Senate next year. Fires and floods are hitting both sides of the country this Labor Day. A heat emergency in the West has sparked deadly wildfires, while parts of the Midwest, while the Southeast is experiencing severe flooding. Dale Hurd has the story.
At least 2 people have been killed by wildfires that are devastating parts of Northern California.
I have the job of sharing some sad news.
At least 132 homes and buildings have been destroyed by the Mill Fire in the town of Weed.
I lost everything. Animals, house, cars, RV, boats. I lost a lot.
This was just a big puff of black smoke. You could hear small explosions.
The nearby mountain fire in Siskiyou County has burned through more than 8,400 acres. Searing temperatures in the triple digits from California to Idaho have raised the fire risk for an estimated 50 million people. California's governor has declared a state of emergency. More than 2,000 miles to the east, it is severe flooding that has turned deadly. An elderly woman's body was found 5 miles downstream from her home after flash flooding hit southern Indiana and Kentucky.
Massive flooding.
Georgia's governor has declared a state of emergency after heavy rain triggered flash flooding northwest of Atlanta. Up to 14 inches fell in just 24 hours in parts of Tennessee.
We're actually trapped in because the road, of course, is right here, and it's a winding road.
Livestock were seen struggling to find higher ground. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Thanks, Dale. The Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade is still having ripple effects across America. Some pro-life supporters point out that there are needs to fill when it comes to supporting families who might have chosen abortion in the past due to financial reasons. Members of Congress are working on a plan to help, but it could be a tough sell to conservatives. CBN News Capitol Hill correspondent Matt Galka explains.
The initial reaction to the Supreme Court decision returning abortion to the states was that it would mean momentum for stronger pro-life legislation. It's also served as a catalyst for an idea not necessarily embraced by some conservatives. While the reversal of Roe v. Wade was seen as an obvious win for pro-lifers, it also meant the beginning of another battle. It resulted in a flurry of activity from House Democrats, passing mostly symbolic bills that are stalled in the Senate to codify abortion into federal law.
Democrats are putting people over politics. We are ferociously defending the right to make decisions about women's health.
Some Republicans argue it's time for more family support. Utah Senator Mitt Romney put out his Family Security Act 2.0 plan over the summer. It's meant to ease economic hardships on families. Finances are often the #1 reason cited by women seeking an abortion. Romney has tried to thread the needle between support and what could be perceived as welfare in the bill.
I'd like people, a young woman that's not working and is pregnant, I'd like her to know that she doesn't have to eliminate the pregnancy to be able to carry the financial burden of a child. But I understand that we don't want to create any potential incentive for people to become entirely dependent upon government.
For more than a decade, economist Abby McCloskey has advocated for a greater government response to the struggles families and single mothers face.
There has been hesitation, I think, on the part of conservatives to rally behind these policies to the extent they're seen as a new entitlement or new spending and new federal overreach. And, you know, as a conservative, those concerns are ones I take seriously as well. That said, I think the purpose of government, even for the most conservative of us, is to provide a safety net for vulnerable people.
Romney's plan has also earned some support from major pro-life advocates, including the National Right to Life Committee.
The practical effect, of course, is going to help families with young children, but also hopefully it is going to help to make women realize that children are a blessing, and ending the life of that child is not going to improve their life.
Now, Romney's plan isn't the only GOP effort here. Florida Senator Marco Rubio has sponsored a plan that also includes a tax credit, plus expands into areas like paid leave, adoption, and crisis pregnancy centers. You can read more about both plans on CBNNews.com. Matt Gelka, CBN News.
Thanks, Matt. Coming up, America is at a crisis point, facing social, racial, and political arguments that are splitting the country. What can heal these divisions? Meet a Christian author who says it's revival or we die when we come back. Welcome back. America is experiencing political, racial, and social unrest. What will heal the deep divisions in our country? Many Christians believe the answer lies in the hope of a great awakening. Charlene Aaron explores what it will take to bring spiritual renewal to America.
From the nation's capital to the harvest fields of the Midwest, believers have been crying out to God for spiritual renewal in America. Some believe the nation sits on the brink of collapse, with the only hope being a visitation of God's power and presence.
Revival or we die. That's where you have to get. You have to get to that place where you can't live any longer without visitation. It could be personal. It could be personal revival where you know there must be a breakthrough.
What will heal the deep racial, social, and political divisions that are tearing us apart? In his new book, Revival or We Die, A Great Awakening is Our Only Hope, Dr. Michael Brown says revival is vital to seeing things change.
We're at that critical moment again. America's being torn apart by the seams, and we've seen there are no political solutions, there are no social solutions, and the church itself has become impotent. So we're at a crisis point in American history where without divine visitation, America as we know it could come to an end or could be so marred that the world our kids or grandkids grow up in will be very, very different.
Dr. Corney Becker, Dean of Regent University's School of Divinity, agrees, saying we've reached a time of spiritual reckoning.
But I believe America recognizes that politics cannot save her. Ideology cannot save her. Social change cannot save her. Only the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ.
A student of past revival movements, Becker believes in order to experience true spiritual renewal, the church must first prepare.
Revival throughout the history of the church is always a sovereign move of God. No man can, in essence, make it happen. It is supernatural. And so what we desperately need to do is to cry out to God. And that's what Psalms 85 says. Revive us, O Lord. And then secondly, to search our hearts, to allow the Holy Spirit to search our hearts.
In 1995, Brown helped lead the Brownsville Revival in Florida, which lasted 6 years. He says supernatural moves of God are unscripted and out of the norm.
When revival happens, it's not just a matter of one or two people getting excited or a crowd getting lifted up. Revival happens outside of church buildings. Some of the greatest testimonies we heard during the days of the Brownsville Revival were after people left, or when they got to their church service next Sunday, the fire of God would fall, and the fire of God would continue to burn for months and even for years.
Becker is hopeful that the nation is on the verge of something even bigger.
True revival happens in the streets, happens in the homes, and happens in the darkest places of society. Think of the most chaotic places in our world, the darkest places in our world. That's where the Spirit is hovering, waiting to recreate. It's not too late for America.
An impact he believes will be undeniable.
We will see monumental change, firstly in the church, but we will also see it within community. We will see families being restored. We will see crime go down. We will see a thirst and hunger for holiness within our world.
Signs, Brown says, are already taking place.
As I've been out ministering just this year, as restrictions have lifted after COVID, I'm seeing God move in ways. I'm seeing hunger. I'm seeing people weeping in the presence of God. I'm seeing people set free and transformed. It's happening here and there. I believe it's going to be nationwide, and we could literally see the nation ablaze with revival fire.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
And thanks, Charlene. Still ahead, welcome to the Cathedral of the Wild. Every year, 3,000 people make this 2,000-mile trek through 14 states. We'll find out why they do it right after this. Each year, some 3,000 people take on the challenge of hiking more than 2,000 miles along the Appalachian Trail. They're known as through hikers, and they cross 14 states on their journey. Now, a new book explores what happens when humans venture into what's known as the Cathedral of the Wild. I traveled to the oldest hostel on the Appalachian Trail to bring you the story.
Since 1976, thousands hiking the trail stretching from Springer Mountain, Georgia to Mount Katahdin, Maine, have stopped at the Church of the Mountain in Delaware Water Gap, Pennsylvania, for support ranging from the physical to the spiritual. Reverend Sherry Blackman has captured many of their stories in her book, Tales from the Trail, stories from the oldest hiker hostel on the Appalachian Trail.
We have people from all ages coming on the trail, young, old, in between. And I believe that there's always an underlying spiritual reason for people to be on the trail. And some of them don't know why they're doing it, but what I have found consistently is people are in some kind of transition. They're wondering what's next for them. They're grieving a loss of some kind.
Amazing grace. Reverend Blackman has led this flock since 2014, telling us the hiker ministry is what first attracted her.
Because we're providing shelter, water, showers, sleeping space, counsel if they want it, first aid if they need it, to strangers from all over the world. So having come from a background as a journalist, I was completely drawn to this church that had 1,400 hikers that pass through a year and stay with us.
During our visit, we met Austin, trail name Pirate, a 27-year-old restaurant manager from Florida who always dreamed of making the trek.
I was only going to do Georgia. I had 2 weeks off of work, but I hit the trail and I was like, you know what, when's the next time I'm going to be on the trail? So I, just decided to keep on going, see how far I could make it.
Pirate, who started in Georgia in late April and is now more than halfway to Maine, says one of his most memorable moments was an encounter with a baby deer.
Hey, precious. And he followed me for like 3 miles.
Do you feel like you're encountering God out here?
There's certainly a higher power. There's this saying on the trail provides. 4 or 5 days ago, someone had very generously put a cooler with, 6 things of water in it. And on the inside was a note, and it said, "Through hikers, if you need resupply, place to shower, place to stay, call this number free of, whatever." The generosity and the culture of the people on the trail is like perfect. Makes me want to keep going.
31-year-old Maggie, trail name Skittles, hiked the trail with her husband in 2019.
I was a nurse, and I was feeling a little bit burnt out, and I thought the trail would just be a great way to surround myself with nature and peace and quiet for the most part, and not have to deal a lot with people. But it was the people, the connections we made with people that meant the most to me, and really just kind of changed my entire viewpoint.
Did you come back more in love with your husband or less in love?
More in love, for sure. For sure. It was an adventure of a lifetime, and I'm so glad that I had him to share it with.
Others, like 21-year-old Levi, trail name Lat, short for latitude, hope to find emotional healing and peace on the journey.
I can finally be happy with who I am. I mean, it's something I've never experienced in my life. At least I don't ever remember.
In addition to bunks and hot showers, the church hosts a free hikers feed each Thursday during the summer.
We have potluck dinner. People from community as well as church come, bring food. We never know how many hikers we're going to have. We could have, I think about one night we had up to 50. There's no agenda.
By the time AT hikers get here to the quaint little town of Delaware Water Gap, Pennsylvania, they've already trekked more than 1,000 miles. This is the halfway point, whether you're hiking northbound or southbound. And Reverend Sherry says that's significant.
With every step they take, there's a shedding, like a soul shedding. It's like they're getting rid of stuff. They realize what they don't need to live. They realize what really connects them to life. So I think it's significant because sometimes I think it takes 1,000 miles to kind of let go of stuff. There was a guy here, he had walked here from Georgia, and he said that by the time he got to our place, he had finally forgiven his wife for her infidelity.
So why did you write Tales from the Trail?
I wrote it because I wanted to celebrate the ministry of the church. I wanted other churches to realize that, look around your community. They were down to like 15 people in the 1970s. And they're like, who's coming through? How do we minister to those in our town? And that's when they saw these hikers resupplying on the church lawn. And that's what started it.
Whether it's the need for adventure, the thrill of the challenge, or deep personal healing, Blackman says the so-called Cathedral of the Wild often leaves these brave explorers to the only one who truly satisfies.
There's a story in the book about a young man who's a potter, well-known potter, and he was walking the trail because I think he was really having this restlessness in his life. And he said by the time he got to Mount Katahdin, he realized it was Jesus and it was only Jesus.
It's on my bucket list. Sherry Blackman's book, Tales from the Trail, is fantastic. I couldn't put it down. You can get yourself a copy online or wherever books are sold. Well, coming up, we're going to bring you a look at a very special trip the Auburn University basketball team recently took to Israel. We'll have the story when we come back. Stay with us. A U.S. college basketball coach hopes his team's recent trip to the Holy Land will lead to visits by other teams in the future. As Chris Mitchell shows us, the trip also served as a spiritual pilgrimage for some of the players.
I believe it's going to be, and I don't know, we've kind of called it birthright for college basketball, but I don't want to take away from the birthright name because that's for Jewish kids to come back to their homeland. But when you say it, I think people get the idea of what we're trying to get accomplished. I'd also like to somehow tie it to the Abraham Accords. Like, why not stop over there in Bahrain or UAE on the way over? A couple games there, then a couple games here. And again, just normalization of relations. And so we'll see.
Bruce Pearl is the winningest coach in Auburn's history and one of only 4 Jewish college coaches to take his team to the Final Four in the NCAA basketball tournament. He sees sports as a common denominator.
It brings people together. It brings teams together. It brings universities together. It brings communities together. And, sports obviously is a way it's brought us together.
He rallied this group of Israelis.
God has blessed us. He's chosen us. And with that's a responsibility. Just like I tell my players, you got to represent the name on the front of your jersey. That's Auburn. You got to represent the name on the back of your jersey. That's your family name. But you also got to represent God's children, the Jewish people. You got it with how you act, with how you study, with how you love each other, what kind of neighbor you're going to be. Let the light continue to shine upon you and shine upon all of our people.
The Auburn team played a number of exhibition games with Israeli teams. They also got to tour Israel, from the Western Wall, the Dead Sea, the Sea of Galilee, and many got baptized in the River Jordan. For many, like Dylan Cardwell, it was their first trip to the Holy Land.
Insane, just seeing the Bible come to life and being able to tour Jerusalem my first day here and just see the route that Jesus went on before he was crucified and seeing the stone that he was anointed on. I'm just so glad I got to experience that stuff and just see the life that Jesus has lived and how it's impacted billions and billions of people, like 2,000 years down the line.
After college, Cardwell hopes to play in the NBA, then enter the ministry. His time in Israel is bringing the Bible to life.
Can't believe I'm here, after reading so much about it and studying so much about it and just hearing about it from my friends and my family and my small groups and my church and my community. It's just insane to see it come to life. It's a big blessing, bigger than I can ever ask for. And I'm just so grateful to be able to experience it. And it's a beautiful land. It's just so much. It's just I ran out of words to explain it, but it's a beautiful land.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Amen. I can relate. I got baptized in the Jordan River as well. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can find more of our news programs on the CBN News channel anytime. We're online with cbnnews.com. Also, tell us what you think about our stories you've seen today. You can email us at newswatch@cbn.com or reach out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We hope you'll join us next time. Until then, from all of us here, have a great day and God bless you.